Some of the biggest coffee brands in the UK spend millions making sure their bags look premium. The photography is flawless, the copy is confident, the price suggests quality. But when you strip all of that away and actually look at what is inside, the sourcing, the roast date, the bean grade, the flavor consistency, several of those brands start telling a very different story. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Most UK shoppers buy the same 2 or 3 coffee brands on repeat, assuming that price and familiarity are a reliable guide to quality. Coffee professionals would argue they are not. In fact, some of the most consistently criticized brands in the UK coffee world are exactly the ones with the biggest supermarket presence. The ones you walk past every week, reach for on autopilot, and trust without ever really questioning. Today, we are going to question them. 8 brands. 1 audit. And Starbucks is not even the most uncomfortable conversation on this list. The UK coffee retail market is worth over £1 billion. That is a lot of shelf space, a lot of marketing budget, and, based on the quality signals professional tasters consistently flag, a lot of products that may not be earning the trust they are being given. What makes this particularly interesting is that coffee is not complicated to assess. Professionals use a set of well-established quality markers: where the beans come from, how they were roasted, how recently, and whether the flavor in the cup actually reflects what the packaging claims. These are not obscure technical tests. They are the basic questions every brand should be able to answer clearly. Several of the brands on today's list struggle to answer them at all. Now, we are not here to claim anything is unsafe. The concern is not safety. The concern is value, transparency, and whether the marketing on the front of the bag matches what is actually happening inside it, because for a lot of shoppers, that gap is where the money disappears. This is the ShelfProof audit. 8 UK coffee brands. Let's find out which ones actually belong on your shelf. Before we get into the brands, you need to understand what we are looking for, because the criteria matter. We are assessing sourcing transparency. Does the brand tell you where its beans actually come from, or does it hide behind vague terms like finest Arabica without specifics? We are looking at roast freshness. Is there a roast date on the packaging, or just a best before date that tells you nothing about how stale the coffee already is by the time it reaches your shelf? We are assessing flavor consistency and whether expert and consumer feedback aligns with the brand's premium claims. And critically, we are examining price to quality ratio, because some of the most expensive options on this list are not the best ones, and some of the cheapest are doing far more than their price suggests they should. There is one brand near the end of this list that is going to illustrate that point in a way that might genuinely surprise you, but we are not there yet. Brand 1. Starbucks at Home Range. Let's start here because it is the name most people expect to see near the top. Starbucks has near universal brand recognition. Consumers associate it with a premium coffee experience, largely because of the cafe. The at-home range borrows all of that. Same logo, same color palette, same implied quality signal. But here is the problem coffee professionals raise repeatedly. The Starbucks roasting philosophy across almost its entire product line means very dark. Some tasters describe the dominant flavor profile as burnt rather than bold. This is not a subtle distinction. A dark roast done well can be rich, complex, even slightly sweet. A dark roast done to mask low-grade bean character tends to taste flat, bitter, and one-dimensional. The concern, based on quality signals and tasting notes shared across the coffee professional community, is that the Starbucks at-home range is trading heavily on cafe brand recognition rather than genuine roasting excellence. The beans are not traced to specific origins. The roast dates are absent from most packaging, and the price point sits firmly in the premium tier. You are, some experts argue, paying for the siren, not the coffee. Overpriced for what the quality signals suggest. And this is not even the most uncomfortable brand on the list. Brand 2. Nescafé Original. Nescafé Original. Nescafé is the best-selling coffee brand in the UK. That fact alone is worth pausing on, because it tells you something about how millions of UK shoppers define coffee. The brand is dominant, familiar, and affordable. It is also instant, which means it bypasses the bean, the roast, and the grind entirely. You are buying a spray-dried or freeze-dried coffee product, not a ground or whole bean coffee in any meaningful craft sense. Coffee professionals do not tend to criticize Nescafé for being unsafe or dishonest. The criticism is more structural. Nescafé Original uses Robusta beans, lower in grade than Arabica, higher in bitterness, and used partly for cost efficiency. The marketing, however, leans into comfort, warmth, and ritual. The product is positioned as something it arguably is not. The real issue is not that instant coffee exists. It is that the brand's ubiquity may be shaping what shoppers believe good coffee is supposed to taste like. And that expectation then makes it harder for shoppers to recognize genuine quality when they find it. Not a fraud, but a product that coffee experts would argue many shoppers have significantly overestimated. Brand 3. Kenko Smooth. Kenko sits in a curious middle ground. It is priced above budget, pitched as a trusted household name, and positioned just below the premium tier. The smooth label implies something intentional about the flavor, but quality-conscious tasters often describe it as simply unremarkable, not bad enough to reject, not interesting enough to recommend. Here's what experts consistently raise as a concern with brands like Kenko. When a coffee is described as smooth, it should mean controlled acidity, good body, and a balanced finish. Instead, smooth in mass-market coffee often functions as a way of saying low bitterness without any compensating complexity. It is coffee that does not offend, but it also does not do very much. There is no specific origin disclosure, there is no roast date, and there is a wide gap between what smooth and trusted implies on packaging and what independent tasters tend to find in the cup. Acceptable if price is your priority. Not worth a premium, and there's a brand coming up that will make the Kenko price tag look very difficult to justify. Brand 4. Lavazza Qualità Rossa. This is where the audit starts to get uncomfortable because Lavazza has a genuinely strong reputation in professional circles. It is an Italian brand with decades of heritage, and some of its products, particularly its espresso-focused lines, are well regarded. But Qualità Rossa, which is the version most commonly stocked in UK supermarkets, is a different story. Qualità Rossa uses a blend of Arabica and Robusta beans. That is not inherently a problem. Many excellent espresso blends do exactly the same. The concern raised across multiple professional reviews is that the Robusta content in this blend is noticeably high, higher than the premium positioning of the brand suggests, and that the roast profile is calibrated for a very specific preparation style that does not translate well to the way most UK home coffee drinkers actually make their coffee. In other words, this is a product built for Italian espresso culture, sold at a premium price in a market where most people are making it in a cafetière, a filter machine, or a pod system. The coffee professionals are not saying it is bad. They are saying it may be the wrong product in the wrong context, sold with a heritage premium that UK shoppers may not be getting full value from. Better than several brands on this list, but possibly the most overhyped given how it is actually being used. Brand 5. Douai Egberts Pure Gold. Douai Egberts is another brand with enormous supermarket presence and a price point that suggests something premium is happening. Pure Gold, in particular, is one of the most heavily marketed instant coffees in the UK. The name alone is doing considerable work, but the same structural concern applies here that applied to Nescafé. This is an instant coffee product. The Pure Gold language implies a level of craft that instant production processes do not support. Consumer reviews frequently describe it as inoffensive but forgettable. Coffee professionals often use it as an example of a brand that has successfully sold the idea of quality rather than the reality of it. The price comparison here is striking. Pure Gold regularly retails at a price point that, if spent on a genuinely specialty ground coffee, would buy something with clear sourcing, a roast date, and a flavor profile that could actually be described. You are paying premium prices for a product that cannot, by nature of its category, deliver premium results. A marketing success, a quality disappointment, and it is about to have company. Brand 6. Taylor's of Harrogate. Taylor's is interesting because it occupies a genuinely premium shelf position, and unlike several brands we have covered, it does make some genuine effort toward sourcing transparency. Some of its single origin products are reasonably well regarded, but the mainstream supermarket range, the blends that most shoppers actually buy, raises questions that the premium branding does not fully answer. The roast consistency issue comes up in professional circles. Some tasters argue the roasting is not as precise as the price implies and that the flavor can vary noticeably between batches. That inconsistency matters because a brand charging a premium for a curated coffee experience needs to deliver that experience reliably, not occasionally. Consumer reviews often paint a picture of a brand that is better than the mass market options, but not as good as the price gap between them and a genuinely specialist roaster would suggest. Better than most on this list, but not the full premium product the packaging implies. Brand 7. Carte Noire. Some brands depend almost entirely on aesthetic. Carte Noire is arguably the clearest example of that strategy in the UK coffee market. The black packaging, the French positioning, the sense that this is somehow more sophisticated than other options on the shelf. It's a powerful brand identity. The actual product, however, is widely criticized by coffee professionals as delivering far less than the visual premium suggests. The bean sourcing is vague. The flavor profile is described repeatedly across tasting notes and consumer forums as thin and unremarkable. Several independent reviews have placed it among the weakest performing premium positioned coffees relative to price. This is a brand that has, by quality signal analysis, been coasting on visual identity for years. The coffee inside the black bag does not match the sophistication the black bag implies, one of the weakest value propositions on this list, and the next brand is going to prove exactly why that matters. Brand 8. Aldi's specially selected Colombian. Here is the pattern interrupt. Budget supermarket. Own label product. No brand heritage campaign. No lifestyle photography, just a bag of coffee on a shelf in Aldi, priced significantly below everything else we have audited today, and in repeated blind and independent testing, it outperforms most of them. The Colombian single origin designation means something specific and verifiable. There is actual sourcing information here. The roast profile is described consistently by tasters as clean, balanced, and genuinely flavorful. Consumer satisfaction scores are high, and the price comparison with Carte Noire, Douai Egbert's Pure Gold, and the Starbucks at Home range is, based on quality signals, almost embarrassing for those brands. This is not an accident. Several premium supermarket own labels have been quietly improving their coffee sourcing for years, while the big brand names have been raising prices and defending market share through marketing budgets rather than cup quality. Better than expected. Significantly better than several brands charging twice the price. So where does this leave us? In the wouldn't buy category, Carte Noire stands out as the clearest case of brand image outrunning product reality. You are paying for packaging. In the overpriced category, Starbucks at Home, Douai Egbert's Pure Gold, and Kenko Smooth are all asking for more than the quality signals support. The branding is working hard. The coffee is not working as hard as the price implies. In the acceptable but not special category, Nescafé Original and Lavazza Qualitavoso both have legitimate cases to make for their specific audiences, but not for the premium trust most shoppers extend to them by default. Taylor's of Harrogate sits in the better-than-expected tier, particularly on specific origin products. It is not perfect, but it is at least asking the right questions about sourcing. And Aldi's specially selected Colombian sits quietly in the actually worth buying category. Not because it is extraordinary, but because it does what the premium brands promise to do and largely fail to deliver, give you a cup of coffee that justifies its price tag. The most expensive auction on this list was not the best one, and the one with the least marketing spend was one of the most honest products in the audit. That is not a coincidence. That is what the shelf looks like when you stop reading the packaging and start reading the product. Next time you reach for a coffee in the supermarket, the question is not which brand has the most convincing bag. The question is whether what is inside that bag has actually been earned, or whether you are just paying for the confidence of the marketing team that put it there. ShelfProof exists because the gap between those two things is wider than most brands would like you to know. The real question is never which coffee has the loudest packaging. The real question is which one actually deserves a place on your shelf.